You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Now we answer questions we receive from you, our viewers. If you have a question yourself, please visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com. Okay, Brother Shabir, we have a bunch of questions here. The first one is a little bit loaded. It says, why does Islam allow slavery?
Well, the question presumes that Islam allows slavery.
Yeah.
So we should understand what. Let's think about this question more clearly. It is obvious that early societies did have slaves, and slavery continued in many parts of the world up until very recently. And in fact, even in present times, we hear reports that some communities may have slaves. Or more widely, we hear that people are treated with such or put to work in such poor conditions that one might as well describe them as though they're slaves in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But does Islam condone all of this? We can only say that Islam as a way of life and as a body of teaching permitted the practice to continue in some societies where nothing better could have been done. The situation was such that to declare all slaves to be suddenly free all at once, some 1400 years ago, might not have been practical. Either because the economic conditions were not ripe for it, or because people in general would not have been able to accept this and live with it, was such an entrenched part of society. And some changes cannot be done only in one isolated community. It has to be done by society reaching a certain threshold of understanding, more generally the world reaching a certain level of development where we can say, okay, we've had enough of this, let's end it altogether. So you come to international agreements and pacts to end something like this, and hence we have things like the abolition of slavery, which has been achieved in modern times. So Islam should be part of that movement too, to abolish slavery forever. And so if we ask what does Islam teach today about slavery, we would say that Islam today should teach that Muslims should not have slaves, and nobody should have slaves, because God has created people basically free, and that is how people should remain. We are servants of God, but not slaves to people.
So is it fair to say then that Islam prohibits slavery today?
I would say so, yes, without any hesitation. And what I would do is I would find in the Quran and in the life example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, those indications which chalk out the direction towards the abolition of slavery. We should see, for example, that in the Islamic tradition, words attributed to our Prophet, peace be upon him, say that you are not allowed to buy a free person or capture a free person and put that person in a situation of slavery, and that God will be at war with the person who does this, who benefits from the price of selling such a free person. The one thing that remained in the early Islamic tradition was the possibility of acquiring slaves through a justifiable war, where instead of killing off the enemy combatants after they are captured, because there were no prisons in the early Islamic society, because prisons were not yet developed, to put it more correctly. The way of dealing with captured prisoners of war were to have them perform some of the menial tasks in society, and of course they were not free to leave. So in that sense they were slaves, but at the same time the directive given by the Prophet, peace be upon him, is that Muslims having slaves should feed them with the same kind of food that they eat, and have them wear the same kind of clothes that the Muslims themselves wear, in which case they're just like your brother in your society, with the distinction, of course, that they're not free to leave.
Mm-hmm. And of course we have examples of some companions of the Prophet who freed slaves.
Yes, the Quran and the life example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasize the freeing of slaves. Sometimes a slave has to be freed as a penalty for certain sins that the Muslim commits, and sometimes it's just recommended.
All right, thank you for your time, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
That's all the time we have. For updates and additional information, please visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com, and write to us, because your comments and questions help guide the show. I'm Safiya Ali. For all of us here at Let the Quran Speak, thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.